how did we arrive to the place where this is the best thing in sex?
My guest today, Alexey Welsh, is a sex educator, coach, author, and alternative sex therapist who has for decades helped women, men, and couples transform their sex lives to find greater love, richness, spiritual depth, and sustainable, ever-growing, fulfilling sexual relationships. We are back again because we recorded a previous episode, which I'll link to, and you can go back and watch. But we wanted to go a little bit deeper. So thanks for coming back to the show, Alexey.
Thanks, Lisa. Always nice to talk to you.
As I've told you many times, and as I mentioned in the past, I'm such a fan of your YouTube channel, specifically because you offer what I think is so much needed and necessary and highly unconventional perspectives and alternative information we get from most mainstream information sources around sex. So I was hoping to go a little bit deeper into some of the topics we talked about last time and debunk some of those mainstream informational sources and belief systems.
Sounds great. Yeah, that's what I do.
I know you have programs helping people learn alternative techniques. So the way that we're led to believe we should be interacting with each other. But you also have more recently videos, not just on the physical techniques, but also on some of the ways that we might think about it. And I think in one of them, you even say that one of the most powerful things, one of the most powerful inputs in how we interact with each other has to do with how we're thinking about it, our mindset.
Yeah.
You posted a video recently about the experience that women have in sex and how we might not always feel as much as is possible as a result of some of the information that we get from the mainstream. And in particular, you mentioned one of the 5 things you mentioned is that bad technique is so widespread that women have come to the place where they consider that normal because that's almost all they know.
I think an important thing about technique is that it does need to have all components. So if we are just doing physical technique, then we are not really going to feel much from it because the emotional power that you're putting into the technique, it really makes technique a lot more alive. It transmits a lot more sexual energy between us. So physical technique on its own doesn't really deliver to us, as much as it could. But then on the other hand, it's really important to not go in the other direction and think that it's all about just feeling nice together and being in love or something. There is a reality of the body, and the body works a certain way, and if you touch it this way, it's going to feel that, and that way is going to feel this. So it's really important always to combine understanding better how the body works, but also it has to go in parallel with adding your emotional connection, your presence with it. And it's really impossible, I find, to just tell people how to connect better to their body, how to feel better together if you don't tell them how to improve their physical technique at the same time. To me, often when women enjoy sex in the way sex is done, to me, it's almost illogical. It's almost like a miracle. I have worked with women for so long, and from my observation about how the woman's body works and how to create the best energy and how the woman connects mentally, emotionally with sex, what we have in our culture misunderstand it so much that when women enjoy it, I'm surprised, if that makes sense,
It totally makes sense. It totally makes sense.
I'm looking at it and I think there's no way this could work, but it's worked for you somehow, in a sense.
Yeah, it's kind of like against all odds, it still works, not because of the way that it's been implemented. I think what I noticed that really speaks to that is the idea that you talk about desensitization and the fact that some of the ways that women are used to having their bodies treated it has become so normalized, but they don't even in a way notice that it's creating desensitization because we have such a focus on intensity, on passion. And I think you have some other videos about rough sex too, and how it's become so much in the mainstream that all that intensity is what women want. So then they start believing that's what they want. So then that's what they start experiencing. And there's a level of desensitization that happens in the body that then, of course, either women come to you and say, I'm not feeling as much, I'm feeling numbness, or they're not even aware that they're feeling numbness, but there's a lot more opportunity for increased pleasure and a sensation that they maybe don't even know that they don't know.
There are a lot of dimensions in sex which are quite subtle, but they're really powerful. So if we go now a little bit more into the realm of, tantric experiences and generally energetic experiences, I think one of the disagreements I have with a lot of perspectives on tantric sex at the moment is that it's all about making, more and more intense flow and making it go for hours, and it's all basically about, creating more and more fire with it. I think actually the most interesting and even in a sense spiritual dimension of sex happens in a more subtle experiences of it. And there is a lot of really beautiful and really powerful sex that is, fairly soft and relaxed. And we're not talking about sort of lightly brushing fingers or making a light sensation. We're talking about real energy that flows between people. So there is a sense of blissfulness about it. When we're using the word energy, obviously we're using it in the broadest sense, in kind of in this most abstract sense of what we're feeling between ourselves. But I have found over the years of work that there are some really powerful places there, and you can use sexual technique to experience those places. You can feel subtle but really powerful energy in the genitals, and experiences that we can call internal orgasmic vibrations that can come from that subtlety as well. There's actually a lot that you can experience in stillness, even in sex, if you develop your ability to do that through the body or through the genitals. All of this requires the ability to perceive it and to enjoy it and to listen to it. And that is where sensitivity comes in. The more sensitive we make our body, the less we have to do. And therefore, the more we feel when we do things. So the intensity that you can reach if your body is sensitive is far greater than the intensity you can reach by just physical stimulation if you keep desensitizing yourself.
It's not that we need to go into that, although at some point I'd love to talk more on the show about the erotic blueprint model. But there's 4 blueprints. They're sexual, sensual, energetic, and kinky. And then there's one shapeshifter. I personally think everyone's a shapeshifter, but we all go between all of the different types. I'm out in the dating world now after being married for 20 years and now divorced for 5. And what I notice out in the dating world, there's this really big focus, especially in the sex positive communities, around kink and BDSM. And then there's the other world where there's Tantra, and some places they mix. But I think what you're suggesting is that in the Tantra world, maybe there's a misunderstanding of that opportunity of experiencing the energetics of sex, and instead focusing on like this intense, Kundalini, life force energy all the time, heightenedness. But really, the energetic type, which is what I am, the energetic type wants to feel the power in that space, the power in that quiet, the power in that stillness, focusing on the energy between two people and this whole range of experience that has to do with subtle movement and even not movement that has so much power that most of the time is completely missing in our current sexual world and realm.
That in itself is really valuable, to have those experiences, and they can be really beautiful and really profound. They're probably some of the most spiritual experiences of sex that I've had. It wasn't in the intensity range, it was in the range of going deeper into the stillness of that energy. Building on that, if you wanted to create more sensation, more sexual energy, it would be far easier and far richer to do that if you have that sensitivity, because everything you do would be magnified. And vice versa, if you are used to intensity, then everything you're doing is dulled by, that desensitization. I think it's quite difficult to classify anyway, because a lot of people's experiences are from what they have been exposed to and what they maybe are used to, and it's not necessarily what they really. If you give them a chance, if you tell them how. I work with so many people who thought that they are into something intense, or they're into kink, or, this is like the main thing. And then when we start working, it turns out that they appreciate something else much more than that.
Well, I love that. And that's why I personally think everyone is a shapeshifter, and we have access to all of those ranges, and that it comes from either our acculturation, what we've been exposed to, and then maybe there's a natural inclination too. That's the one that we have to uncover a little bit, that we have to discover a little more. I love typing systems.
Right.
But only because as a starting point, I totally respect and relate to what you're saying is that sometimes categorizing people or categorizing ourselves can be limiting. For me, they're always just a starting point in a conversation.
My personal perspective, and I don't, it's just a personal perspective, like that the blueprint system will be, will fit somebody else's perspective. But for me personally, first of all, we are human beings who have pretty much, relatively speaking, similar needs and similar aspirations in intimacy and in personal relationships. And if somebody is at the moment into a particular thing, then I see it more like they might also expand this to other kinds of sex that they can add to this that will also feel enriching for them. For me to encourage people to expand to their full range of experiences, I don't teach the full spectrum of all the different kinds of sex because there are a lot of different areas, and I can't be a jack of all trades. And I always recommend people anyway to learn particular kinds of sex from people who specialize in them. So, for example, I don't have any intersection with kink because there are a lot of good providers who can fulfill that. The kind of sex that I help people to discover is what is probably missing most in our culture is the sex that is not based on just doing something fun or exciting or adventurous, because these things can be very nice as well, and I think they can be a part of the sex life. But it's a sex that is nourishing, not just for the body, for the energy, but for the for your heart, for the soul. I focus very much on the loving experience of sex because I think it is the most powerful part of sex, and I'm fully convinced of it. And I believe this is the most valuable part of sex to develop. As for the rest of it, I just encourage people to think about sex as a variety of experiences they can have, almost like a healthy, balanced diet in a way, which is that they get real nutrition, real nourishment that is really meaningful for them in their life and really enriches their life. And it has place for, trying everything you want and having fun with things and going on adventures with it as well.
Talk a little bit about the pressure that men are experiencing, the men that you work with, and what kind of challenges they're facing in terms of feeling so much pressure. As
soon as sex becomes any kind of pressure or a job you have to perform, then basically it has lost any purpose to it, to me, as far as I'm concerned, because we already have a lot of things we need to be good at and perform in life, and making sex one of them just defeats the purpose. It needs to be organic. If it is intense, or if it is vigorous, or if it's long, or if there's a massive erection or whatever, then you go with it and you enjoy it. And if it is not happening organically, then there are other kinds of sex that we can have that are very fulfilling, just as beautiful, just as meaningful and nourishing for us, again, in that palette of different experiences. So I think in general, it is important to have that flexibility. This is how a range of experiences is discovered. If we always feel that we need to perform in a certain way, then we're having the same one experience on repeat, and we don't feel all the other things that we would feel otherwise. I think that men do feel pressure to be those lovers who do that. And I think even more importantly, women feel that their role is to be just receiving and just surrendering. Every system energetically is a two-way flow. And if you have only output one way, then you're going to run into problems. Women don't want to be, generally from my understanding, they don't want to be just these lovers who simply receive. They want to engage, they want to interact, they want to interflow with their lovers. And I think there is a really important side to female sexuality as well, which is a side that is expressing herself and having her sexual energies flows and having her love flow. And this can be really meaningful and fulfilling and empowering for women. And I've seen women come really into themselves by being those lovers in sex. To me, this is also femininity. I don't
100%. I think the idea that being feminine just means being surrendered and receptive is a misguide. I don't think it's what polarity is talking about.
Right.
Sometimes popular opinion becomes the de facto truth.
It just becomes simplified to that, yeah.
So I think you're exactly right. I think that there's so much nourishment that women both get and give in a more active role. But I do think that there's a feminine energetic too, the way that we can nourish and give. And the other thing is that, I think the other misunderstanding about polarity is that feminine energy is the exclusive domain of women and that masculine energy is the exclusive domain of men. And I think that's a big misunderstanding that maybe leads to what you're talking about, where we miss out on so much if we have this belief that a woman's role is just to receive and a men's role is to do and perform. Leads us down the wrong path.
For me personally, it is easier to just talk about different energies that exist in sex rather than calling them masculine or feminine and simply this is what we are doing here, and today maybe I'm doing more of this and you're doing more of that because this is where we are today. And I think I've always found that it has given me always more clarity about how to talk about sex or how to understand it, to see it more in those terms without necessarily calling them, masculine or feminine. So that's just the way I've approached it.
Yeah, we're back to the same difference between us, where you don't want to characterize things or classify them because you want the full access and the full range to things. And I guess I always figure that when we have a language that's a starting point or an anchor or a way of describing things, sometimes it's a label.
If we ask a question, well, what does it mean to be masculine, to be feminine? Then we will obviously give a number of attributes to it. I simply suggest that we use those adjectives, those attributes to have that conversation. That's really all it is. Yeah.
There is so much pressure in the mainstream media, the mainstream information around sexuality that encourages so much performative pressure. And we just talked about it for men, the performative pressure to maintain an erection, to go on for a long time, to bring all the energy. For women, I think that the performative pressure is often on what she's supposed to look like or sound like or be like. And also, we touched on this briefly, but I want to go a little deeper into it. There's this whole move in information and sex positivity world about she comes first and he's going to be, giving in good and he's going to make sure that she's taken care of. And there's all this pressure, not only on him to give her an orgasm, to give her that experience, but all this pressure on her to have an orgasm and I think that it's just led us in such a negative direction. And I think in one of your videos, and it's a technique video, you talk about the fact that when you put that pressure on it, it's going to kill it altogether.
I have written a book which is not published yet, and the title of the book is How Orgasms Have Ruined Sex for Women. So I agree with you completely.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
Few things have destroyed sex for women more than the focus on the orgasm. I think it really has destroyed the quality of sex for women. It's always difficult to understand for people at first glance because there is an impression, what do you mean it's the best thing in sex? And another way to look at it is, well, how did we arrive to the place where this is the best thing in sex? We are getting one intense sensation, and this is the best we can get. It turns sex often into work, into something more mechanical, into something more performative. I firmly believe, and this is a belief that I have scrutinized over the years, and I've been very critical about it. And I kind of went to the end with it in terms of really trying to understand the reality of it. But I really firmly believe that the orgasm has practically nothing for us in sex. Insofar as it is a nice sensation, it's a nice sensation. That's all it is. There's no more to it. And if we allow the possibility that sex can be an experience that really enriches us with sexual energy, with aliveness, that will really be transformative for us, we will feel it in our daily life. We will feel a sense of really profound love with our partners and love in our relationship from it, and a sense of connectedness and all kinds of domino effects that people feel from all of that. Because, when I talk about love or connection, people think that, I'm just talking about nice feelings. I mean, these are really powerful substances for the psyche as well. If you're talking about energy, these give you a lot of energy to your life as well, very deeply. So, but even on the level of just experiencing sexual energy during sex, in terms of it flowing through your body and you filling up with it, what we would call, pleasure, but, I kind of expanded to the concept of sexual energy because I think there's more going on there than pleasure. We always get far more out of the whole experience of sex than we could possibly get out of an orgasm. An orgasm, in comparison, gives us nothing. If we were to practice sex in this way, where in every moment we are creating that sexual energy and we can really feel how it is nourishing us, and we're creating good quality of it, and we're feeling all that exchange and interaction, we feel that love with each other, that connection, moment by moment, that would fulfill us a lot more than, in fact, that one intense sensation doesn't fulfill anybody, because the truth is everybody is doing it already. So people get their vibrators out, they get it done, people just come in sex, and a lot of people are having sex where they do exactly that. They just optimize it to this shortcut. They go to bed, they have optimized process to get to the orgasm, they get the orgasm, and supposedly, you should be feeling that, your life is fully enriched and it's amazing because you have these orgasms. And obviously people don't feel that. They feel, they've just knocked one out, and it kind of feels a bit empty, like nothing's changed, So that's one thing. And then the other thing is the value of it is not what we imagine. And because we are focusing on it and we are working on it, we feel that, there isn't so much else happening in sex, but it is because we are working on it. It becomes pretty much the only thing, more or less, that we experience that is interesting. The rest being mechanical work or, the focus on doing something to achieve it. So then it's easy to convince yourself that the orgasm is, the nicest thing in sex, but it shows more than anything that we haven't empowered, sex as it could be. Another, I think, really important thing that you mentioned is that women can have, particularly women, but also men, can have experiences that are what we call a flowing orgasmic experience, which is a lot more fulfilling and powerful, and it can go for a longer time. And the whole of the woman's body can become orgasmic, and different areas of the genitals can become orgasmic in that ongoing way. But it is not possible by trying to have an orgasm, trying to come. So basically, you're going to interrupt that process. And it's only possible to connect with that by really appreciating every moment and creating sexual energy in every moment. So we make it impossible by focusing on the orgasm. We swap those experiences for just this, quick moment of intensity. Yeah.
It's a bit of a Herculean effort to debunk that myth because it's so pervasive in our culture. It doesn't matter whether you're listening to the top sex experts or all the companies that are selling the hundreds of different types of vibrators, or the focus and the training for men to put their attention on her. It's so deep in our culture. So it's definitely one of those belief systems that is challenging to go against. But I love and agree with all the points that you made around what's missing when we put our focus there. So thanks for sharing that. And I would love for people to go and watch some of your videos, and I'll try to find some of the most juicy ones around this topic and link them in the show notes. There are a lot of women who could be listening to our conversation and listening to the things that you're sharing and watching your YouTube channel and saying, yes, 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 this is true. What Alexey's saying is right. I don't know if you work in dating with people or you're only working with people who are already in relationships, but do you have any thoughts for women who say, yes, I think what you're saying is true. I love what you're saying, but where are all the other men who believe this?
You choose somebody who feels like the right person for you to be with. And I think it is at that point where this kind of knowledge becomes relevant, because if you meet somebody a person who has understanding, with who you can talk, with who you would like to do something, then you would be able to exchange those ideas. You'd be able to maybe inspire them or tell them a few things. And I think my appreciation of men, an important thing I have to voice is that not all women are like that either. And a lot of women are so lost in it as well that they really reinforce all this behavior in men that women tend to detest. So there's a lot of contribution. For example, if you take a very basic examples of, what we've just discussed, that, men feel that they need to be dominating all the time because there are a lot of women who believe that, they should be like this. Some men care, some men don't. Some men would like something better and some don't. But I think this pressure that is put on everybody suffers. Men suffer from that too. So they're not exactly enjoying having that pressure put on them as well. And it's difficult for them as well. And they find it difficult to deliver. And it's sort of unfair on them as well, how much, as well as on women, how much they have to, how stressful sex has to be for them. So I think there is an opportunity that if you have a different proposition about what sex can be, how it can be more relaxed and more nourishing for you and more enriching for you, I think there is definitely an opportunity to, for a man as well, to be interested in that. Men often don't know about this, they're not aware of it, but also more than anything, they don't feel they have a permission. So it's only the woman who can suggest it, because men by themselves, they feel like they're not allowed. If you take a basic example, a woman might say that, I don't want to focus on the orgasm and I would like sex, to enjoy sex. It's just this experience where we are creating sexual energy in every moment. We are free, we are relaxed, and we're just going with it. You have to tell a man that he's allowed to do this. He can't very well just say, okay, what I'm going to do is not focus on your orgasm, because then he's an asshole.
Right. Yeah.
So he's not allowed to, because everybody tells him that's what he's got to do. And the only person who can tell a man to relax different performance pressures and to have sex in a different way is his lover, You
also have a video in which you say the same thing to men. You say it's only you that can tell her she can relax. And so I can't remember which video it is, but there's one.
No, I think the video you're thinking about is when I told that to women.
Oh, okay, maybe. But I mean, I would say the same thing is true, that we all need to give each other permission to not be performative. He's like, hey, listen, just relax, enjoy. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to be anything. You don't have to show anything. There's nowhere to get to. I think that we give the permission to each other that there's nowhere for us to get to, and that's the direction that we could go. And I think what I'm hearing you also say is that there's no finding someone from the bus stop. There's only connecting with the right person and then going down this journey together.
Yeah, not all men are going to treat you well and not all women are going to treat you well. And that's just, there's a whole variety of people out there. But I think what is tragic is when people meet and they are right for each other and they have a really good relationship. And there's so many cases like this, and they love each other, or even they're dating, they're just becoming interested in each other. But then this whole dysfunctional paradigm of sex wrecks it for people, and they can't really enjoy each other. They can't grow their relationship. They can't save it sometimes. So I think the way you choose a person that you want to be with still has to remain. And by all means, I when people ask me sometimes, well, can you be loving with somebody? Can you exchange love and energy through sex with somebody you don't know? My question would be, well, if you are not doing that, then what are you doing
What are you doing? Yeah. Whether you know someone or not, hopefully you're bringing your energy to them, whether you know them well or short term or long term.
Yeah. And another thing I would always advise to people who are dating, who are not in a relationship yet, I think it's really, really important to have good clarity and vision about the kind of sex you want to have. If you are dating with the view that someday you might like to have a more ongoing relationship with somebody, then how is that sex life going to happen? Are you going to date for 2 years, having whatever kind of sex, and then at some point you decide you're now in a relationship and now you're going to have good sex? So it has to start from the beginning.
Totally.
From the very beginning, you decide what you would like sex to be about, and you sort of put your best foot forward and you create the best experience you can with this person to offer the best of yourself and to get the best from them, to give it the best chance.
There are also a lot of my audience who are probably in long-term marriages. Maybe they've been married for 15 or 20 or more years. And you have a video recently where you talk about the fact that sometimes that can be a difficult place to maintain a really positive sexual relationship. But ironically, it's a place of great opportunity for that. So what would you say are some of the things that people who are in long-term relationships might think about in order to keep their sexual interaction, connection, fulfilling and deep?
There's a dominant perspective is that you have to keep things novel and exciting and sort of even pretend that you are still strangers in some way, and to create sexual tension, because that is how you can maintain interest. Not to say that we shouldn't do things that are, fun or exciting or adventurous. I think they're like I said before, they're, there's a bucket for them in your sex life. But I think most people feel that what they deep down, what they would like to experience with their partners is more than just something exciting. We want to experience connection with our partners. We want to have this as a time of togetherness, as a time of spending time with each other. Connection is the thing that all long-term partners want the most out of sex, one way or another. I think the experience of physical love between partners in a long-term relationship is really life-changing, and it's really profound what that brings into the relationship, but also into the daily life. And when people only try to make sex novel and exciting, it becomes sort of a chase after clickbait, more or less. Sex needs to give you real value. It needs to feed you with love, with connection, with really enriching energy, even though you leave time for doing things that are fun or exciting as well in that range of experiences. Sex needs to be more flexible, so not putting partners under pressure. So we have flexibility about what form this sexual connection can take today, and the sexual energy. So if it's hot, it's hot. If it's more relaxed, it's more relaxed. If it's we can do a variety of different things, and we can adapt to it.
We've put the information about how people can find you in the other show, and I'll put it in the show notes, but share once again how people can find you and who it is that might want to work with you.
Yeah, anybody who would like to up-level their sex life to greater enrichment and variety of sexual energies and love and connection and well-being. Anybody who is in a long-term relationship as well, I think, would really benefit. So I have my holistic sex program that is for everybody. That is for men, for women, for individuals, for couples. So I teach the whole practice there for the entire sex life, with all the techniques that we need to learn to create this kind of sex life and how to implement it, step by step into your life. So it's all taught there.
Is it an online course, Alexey? Or is
That's an online course, yeah. And the YouTube channel, which you have been watching, my Instagram.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the information that you bring. I think it's so important, and I'm so happy that we got a little bit of a start in this culture of debunking some of the mainstream cultural sexual myths. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
For all of you who have joined Alexey and me in this conversation today, thank you for being here. Thanks for your time and for your attention. And if you would like to listen to or watch some other videos, you can find a couple other examples here. We'll see you next time. Thanks.